Hey everybody, thank you for joining me again. So I'm just going to jump into the topic that this video is about because I don't want to waste your time and it's kind of a touchy subject. So lately I've been seeing a lot of YouTubers make commentary and have lots of live streams and have lots of discussions with other YouTubers about the idea of an ethnostate. This video is basically going to just be my analysis of it, my thoughts on it, and also some questions that I have for the people who are actively talking about this. I know this is kind of still like a new topic and the idea of it is still quite controversial, and I think a lot of people still disagree. Like I said, I will offer my thoughts on it, but I just wanted to sort of put my foot into the conversation and let people know what I think, and also hopefully that they can enlighten me on some parts that I don't understand. So let me first start with what is an ethnostate. Basically, it is a state or a country governed by a certain ethnicity of people. Not only is it governed by this ethnicity of people, the only people who are basically the majority of society are part of this certain ethnicity. An example would be Japan right now. The island of Japan is an ethnostate because 99.8% of the population is ethnically Japanese. Their immigration laws are extremely rigid, and it doesn't really seem like they are super welcoming of foreigners who decide to be a part of the country and move there. So that is what an ethnostate is: a government and the population primarily being of one ethnicity. So I guess first let me present what I think of it, and then I can ask my questions. So I personally don't believe in an ethnostate, and I will tell you why. I am of the belief that the thing that makes a country productive and amazing and flourish is the culture, not the racial aspect of it. I believe that if one is of a hard-working culture, that will ultimately be the reason for success, is because it's been culturally ingrained into you. If you come from a culture that doesn't value education, that doesn't value hard work, I don't think you're going to get very far. I believe that if you've been ingrained with the ideas that working hard and being educated lead to something great, you're probably going to do great things. An example of this would be the Indian culture. Indians are the highest earning minority in the United States. And why? Because the Indian culture relies on the basis of Indians being hardworking and determined. They all come here with basically nothing and go from living in a really tiny apartment to having great jobs and being able to provide for their whole families here and in India. And because of that, I'm really proud of my ethnicity, and I'm really proud to be Indian. So in contrast, if you come from a culture that doesn't really appreciate any of that, and it's not the norm to be successful or work hard, you probably won't be able to get very far. That's why I don't believe ethnicity is the cause of it. I believe it's culture. You can be of any race but be raised by a certain culture. I don't think race is really the predominant reason for behaving a certain way. I believe it's culture. You can be of any race and be raised in a certain culture, and therefore you act that way, and you live by those culture's standards. It's like me. I'm ethnically Indian, and although I grew up in a traditional household, I also have the aspects of being an American and the American culture ingrained within me. I believe that one should be independent, one should be able to defend themselves. I believe that we are all equal. So those are aspects of American society that really aren't reflected in Indian society, for example. Every culture has its, downside. I would like to think that I took the best of both, but because of that, I don't really belong in either. Because certain things that Americans might see as really positive, like being independent and being a woman who lives on her own or with her boyfriend, or has a job and is able to provide for herself and doesn't get married, that's not okay in Indian culture. and vice versa. So it was very hard to explain to my friends growing up that I had to do basically anything that my family asked of me. It would be very hard to explain to my friends growing up whenever they would ask me why I had to do something. And the only thing that I would be able to articulate to them is, oh, my parents told me to and I have to. And once I got older, I realized and I was able to explain that it was the culture. Because I'm Indian and because math and reading are, because education and art is so important to Indian culture, every day I had to be inside and do my multiplication tables from 1 times 1 all the way to 24 times 24. So while I was doing that, my friends would come to the door and see if I could go out with them or play or whatever, and I couldn't. And their reason for why can't you do it later was the only thing that I could think of was, well, I can't because my parents told me I couldn't. And it's all about, you know, respecting your elders, and American society is really not like that. You basically do what you want to do because you have the freedom to do it. And I appreciate the heck out of that, but at the same time, I was put in a really tough spot when I was growing up because I had both of these cultures kind of being inflicted upon me. The other reason why I don't believe an ethnostate would even work is basically the same reason, in that just because a person is of the same ethnicity or race doesn't mean that they subscribe to the same beliefs that you do. Another one of the reasons why I don't believe in an ethnostate is because of the answers that some of these YouTubers who believe in it give when asked, how are you even going to make this happen? Let's say America became an ethnostate. How on earth are you going to somehow send away basically people like me, people who are American and have lived here their whole lives and are of American culture, but they're not white? How on earth are you supposed to deal with that? Because I have just as much of a right to be here as you do. So how are you going to make that happen? For example, when Jean-François Garriéby, when he was asked how could it peacefully happen, but how are you going to be able to separate people who have as much of a right to be here as you do? The only things that he and basically other people could say is that, oh, it could happen, it's going to happen peacefully. Well, when you ask for specifics, how on earth is that going to happen? That can't happen. It wouldn't be peaceful, because how can it be? You're forcing people who have always had a right to be somewhere to go somewhere else. Even though that there are people like him and let's say like Richard Spencer who are very well spoken and who are very educated, they don't seem to know how, they don't seem to be able to perceive the reality of what would actually happen if they tried to build an ethnostate just based on race. It seems like they don't understand that the people who would be joining them in creating the ethnostate aren't just going to be well-spoken and educated people. They're going to be people who are actually right-wing extremists or, you know, actual white supremacists who only believe that the white race is great just because, I don't know. There was a stream that was done with Richard Spencer and Sargon, and I know Sargon got totally wrecked, but he kept asking Richard Spencer, so what is it about the white race? Like, what does it mean to you to be white? Why is it just based on being white? So Richard Spencer, apparently he wasn't understanding the question, and I understood it, and my boyfriend understood it, and it was like, yeah, so what is it just about being white that makes you better than other people? No, it's essentially what he was trying to say was the culture. The only examples he could give is like colonial Europe and all the things that white people have done for humanity. But at the same time, you think about that and it's like Chinese people invented paper. Indians invented chess. They also invented the number 0. Like, all of these great things that humanity has been able to produce, it's not just because of white people. So I feel like people who are really into the idea of an ethnostate, they don't seem to understand that, you know, race has nothing to do with it. And they don't seem to understand that the extremists that they disagree with will definitely be part of their cause. I'm pretty sure if you ask any of them, they're going to say, no, I disagree with racism and white supremacy. But who are you going to be recruiting? It's not going to be people who are like well-rounded and educated and completely, you know, yes, this should be peaceful. No, you're going to attract a lot of riffraff who are also they also happen to be Nazis and white supremacists. So you can't just, you know, if you're going to say, okay, it's only about white people, you can't just be like, oh, only these certain white people are allowed here. So what are you going to do? Is it going to be about being white, or is it about the culture that you actually appreciate? Can you please make the distinction between the two? Is it about race, or is it about culture? Because it can't be about race, because it doesn't matter about race, because there are white people who are stupid and you probably wouldn't want them in your ethnostate, but they're gonna be there anyway because they're white. The other reason why I don't agree with the ethnostate is because my boyfriend and I were talking about this last night, and we realized it's not about right and left. It's, you know, it's like, oh, people on the right, they don't believe that you should have abortions. People on the left believe that you have the right to have an abortion. People on the right don't believe that drugs should be legal. People on the left believe that drugs should be legal. People on the right, and this is all generally speaking, people on the right believe that gay marriage shouldn't be a thing. People on the left believe that it should be. And so since basically the entire population is so wrapped up in left and right, they don't seem to be able to distinguish the fact that it's really not about left and right. It's about authoritarian versus libertarian. If you've seen the political compass and you've taken the test, you know what I'm talking about. With authoritarianism, the government tells you what to do and you should follow it. With libertarianism, it's about the individual. So you are responsible for your own choices, and you are responsible for the consequences of the choices that you make. It seems like people who advocate for the ethnostate don't seem to understand that white people are not just part of the libertarian half of the group. There are plenty who are authoritarian, and those are the actual neo-Nazis who want to tell you what to do and what to say and how to think. And on the opposite end, this isn't just on the right. On the opposite end, if you want to talk about like communism, yes, it's the same thing. Communism is the idea of ultimate authoritarianism. Nobody has liberties. Like, if nobody has liberties, then everybody has liberties. That's how it's basically run. And so I disagree with both. I don't believe that communism should be a thing, and I don't believe that fascism should be a thing. But what people don't understand when they talk about, like, oh, the ethnostate has to be the white race, like, no, you're going to get people from here and also here and here. So what are you talking about? Hopefully that made sense, but if it doesn't, please let me know and we can talk about it. Okay, so now that I've gotten that rant out of the way, let me ask my questions to the people who are for the ethnostate. 1, where do people like me fit in? People who are as American as anybody else. I was born here, I was raised here, I believe in patriotism. I think that I live in the best place on earth. I've thought about it so long, and there are so many places that I've wanted to live, but looking at the world, this is probably the place that I would have the most personal freedoms and the most protection. I can protect myself, and I can't do that anywhere else. Second of all, I was raised in American culture. I'm just as American as, like, Richard Spencer. Tell me how I'm not. I am totally for the betterment of society. I believe in working hard. I believe that you should be personally responsible for the choices that you make. I believe that if you make a stupid choice, you have to live with the consequences. How is that any different than somebody who's white? I don't understand. So, you know, is it just the fact that my skin is brown that I wouldn't be able to be in the ethnostate? And my boyfriend has the same problem. He's half black and half white. So which side can he be on? Is he going to be considered a minority, or is he going to be considered white? Because if you look at him, he doesn't look white. So how does that work? How do people like me fit in? How do people like him fit in? I want that question answered, and nobody seems to be able to answer it. There was a caller on Andy Worski's stream who kept asking this question, and no one could answer it because either they weren't understanding the question, or I don't know, maybe he wasn't putting it forward correctly, but they kept getting sidetracked and nobody could answer it. So please answer my question, man. I already said this. Is it about ethnicity or culture? Third, how can it be nonviolent? Tell me a practical, actually logical way that this can happen, that you can build an ethnostate without violence. Tell me. And that's the other thing that people can't seem to answer. So, going off my first point, is it that my existence as a person without white skin, does it interfere or infringe upon a white person's existence? So I'm of the opinion that it doesn't. And a white person's existence doesn't infringe upon my existence either. So why wouldn't I be allowed into this ethnostate? That's my question. So basically, I think that's all of the questions that I have, and basically all of the thoughts that I have. I needed to rant because this has been eating away at me, and nobody seems to have the answer. I certainly don't. I mean, this whole idea is super new, so someone please enlighten me. Someone please tell me exactly where I would fit in. Let me know, because it can't just be about race. It has to be about culture. I mean, I'm not really part of any culture because I'm a mix of two. So where the hell do I fit in? So someone please let me know. Also, let me know what your thoughts on an ethnostate are. I would love to have this discussion. It's a really, really interesting discussion. It's a really heated one, and that's why it's probably so entertaining to think about and watch. So, yeah, let me know what you guys think, and I really hope that somehow this video gets to the right people, this somehow gets to Richard Spencer, or I don't know, someone, JF, like, please just answer my questions. I'm frustrated, and, you know, in a way, my boyfriend and I are kind of scared, because let's say, I don't know, some shit, like, if shit hits the fan, what side do we align with? Do you guys even want us, or no? So please let me know. I know this makes me sound completely insane, but I feel like we're at a point where this is something that's real and that we need to talk about it. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this video. I certainly had a lot of fun making it. So everybody have a great week, and I will see you next time. Bye.